Hello everyone. In this video, Emma Torales and me, Valia Terol, are going to talk about the natural approach. So the natural approach is a philosophy of language teaching that Tracy Terrell presented in 1977 in collaboration with Stephen Krashen's theories of second language acquisition. And here we have the main statement of this approach was declared by Krashen in the 1980s. And he said, language acquisition occurs only by understanding what is being heard or read in another language. So we also have here some of the characteristics of this approach, and the first one is that they look to supply comprehensible input. This is one of the main points of this approach because they state that if learners don't understand the information they are receiving, they won't be able to acquire it. They also focus on teaching communicative skills because for them, for this approach, communication is the primary function of language, so they reject methods in which grammar is the central component. It provides knowledge over and over again because the educators need to be sure that the input was understood, that the information that the learners are receiving was understood. Foreign language is used without calling on the mother tongue or a grammatical analysis because, as I said before, the grammar is not the central point for them. Acquisition of language requires processing time because during this time the learner is focusing on the growth and the development of their comprehension skills. So during the processing time, they are trying to absorb and understand the input. It considers errors as part of the development of communicative competence. So they see errors as part of the process. This approach also says that there is a pre-production stage in which the processing time that has to do with the processing time because is during the pre-production stage is when the students the learners are understanding and absorbing the input and they are processing it in their minds. And then there is the early production stage, which is the beginning of the production stage, and it's when the learners start saying short phrases or simple single word answers, and they often switch from replying in gestures and names and utterances of yes, no, to more words in the target language. In this approach, also, the learners are expected to speak only when they feel ready to do it. They are not forced to speak if they don't feel ready to do it. And they are also expected to speak only about what they are interested in and what they like, and about what they like.
Hello everyone, we're about to change hosts, and first I would like to apologize for the lack of video of myself because my laptop has got problems with the camera, so just enjoy this picture of a little kitty for a few seconds and let's talk about the many hypotheses that the natural approach has. The natural approach has got many hypotheses, the first of them being the acquisition learning hypothesis, which basically means the acquisition and learning are not the same. What this means is that acquisition is a natural and subconscious process, while learning is an active and conscious one. The second one is the monitor hypothesis, which basically says that when a person makes an utterance, it is their acquired system the one that comes into place, while the conscious learning is the one that comes to edit the utterance and correct the mistakes. All of this means that the learned competence has only one purpose, which is to be used as a monitor or as an editor. Thirdly, we have the natural order hypothesis, which is pretty much self-explanatory, saying that grammar acquisition occurs in a predictable order along with a process of natural development. Then we have the input hypothesis, which says a language is acquired when the learners understand the input. What this entails is that the input that we give the students needs to be one that they can understand themselves, so that they can naturally acquire what we're saying to them. Lastly, the affective filter hypothesis. We all know how our emotions can greatly affect our learning, which is why this hypothesis states that the best environment for language acquisition is one in which there are low anxiety levels, as well as high motivation and self-confidence. So, what does all of this look like when put into a classroom? Let's take a look at classroom motivation. Do we really know what this approach entails? Well, it's basically activities like this. Activities involving meaningful communication skills, activities related to the real world, and activities according to the student's interests. All of this means is that the textbook examples are not always accurate to the real world or not really useful when put into a real-life situation, so we need to make sure that our activities are meaningful for them, so their communication skills are something that they have built on things that they can use. And also making the lessons appealing to our students by relating them to their own interests and their lives. And the most important thing, create a friendly environment. Remember, low anxiety levels and high motivation and self-confidence. So what else does the classroom application imply? It's basically these 6 things. Wide exposure to vocabulary, use of visuals, mostly pictures, gestures, movements to make input comprehensible. Why? Because we need to remember that for the students to acquire the language, we need to make the input something that they can understand, which is why we need to relate when we are teaching them to something that they can see or assume by what we're showing them. Thirdly, open dialogue. Don't just use the classic textbook example, make the conversation one that is open, to vary, to move, to flow, and one that they can lead in whichever direction they want. Stimulate creative thinking. Don't just focus on academic related things. Let learners speak, but only when they're ready to do so. We all know how pressure can greatly hinder our learning, and also being put in the spot is not good for the low anxiety levels that we need to be able to meet in an ideal classroom of language acquisition. So we need to let them speak when they feel that they're ready. And lastly, errors need to be seen as part of the learning process instead of something that is frowned upon. So in conclusion, we need to remember that this approach greatly rejects the use of grammatical curriculum, its creation based on making the process as natural as possible for the students. And that was it. Thank you so much for your attention so far. We really hope that you learned something. Take care, and until next time.